As the lead of Accenture's strategy and consulting practice in the UK and Ireland, Matt Preble has unique insight into what is keeping the country's executives awake at night. In this episode, he'll be helping us understand what those execs can do to ease their worries. Welcome back to Tomorrow Today. Matt, thank you for joining us. Great to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here today, Ollie.
To kick off, I wanted to get a sense from you about how different the businesses you're working with today are to the ones you were working with a couple of years ago. What has changed?
Well, many of the businesses we're working with today have been just through an incredible journey over the last couple of years. If you think of pharmaceutical companies, have had to find new ways to launch and develop drugs and vaccines in just a much shorter period of time. If you look at retailers, they've had to find ways of being able to operate without their stores open and with only half their colleagues available. And they're in a position where our clients have had to really work out how to become agile at the core and to become hybrid environments for workers. And so this concept of agility is just absolutely key at the moment in business.
I mean, you get to work with such an amazing range of companies. I wonder to what extent they're thinking about this overall theme, if you like, of productivity. I mean, is that a word that resonates anymore?
It's a word that resonates hugely at the moment. I think if you look at it from a global perspective across the world, hopefully now we can see a way through the pandemic. Hopefully we can be in a position where we can navigate that moving forward. But at the same time, we're still going to be left with a world with high inflation. We're going to be left with a world with high debt, with low birth rates. And we have to navigate that together. And so the concept of being able to do more with less is really, really top of the business agenda at the moment.
Right, so this is exactly what I was hoping to unpick with you, because it's easy for me to throw out that word productivity, but just remind us what that means to you, because it can mean different things in the macro and individual business sense, but maybe just help us explore that a bit.
Well, in its essence, it really is doing more with less. And if you think about it, it is the real key to economic growth. You can't really have sustained economic growth unless you can unlock productivity. And that economic growth can then increase wages, it can improve people's income. And if we get it right and we design the future of work correctly, it can actually improve people's lives.
And we've had a bit of a challenge on this, haven't we? Especially in the UK and Ireland. Why do you think that is? What have we faced?
Well, it's really interesting. If you look at the last decade, the UK has underperformed the G7 quite dramatically on productivity. Ever since the financial crisis, we've never really recovered or made real ground in productivity. It's interesting why you ask yourself why that is. Some of it is around infrastructure, investment in things like education, really making sure the country is set up for productivity. But another side of it is businesses. And what I think is really interesting is actually in this digital transformation phase, it's clear that customers have adopted and adapted much quicker than businesses. And that's because effectively businesses have to re-engineer the core of their business to take advantage of the new digital technologies.
Yeah, and to put it bluntly, relying on you to lead them through that. What's at stake for those businesses? Because it's easy to see it as some, macro term, but just bring it back down to the ground.
Well, I think everything's at stake. When you really look at it for companies, we've done quite a lot of research to look at the top performers. And what we found is that the highest 10% of companies deliver almost twice as much revenue as the bottom 25% when it comes to adopting and adapting to new technology. And that impact and that divergence is only getting bigger. The higher performers, the companies that are able to adapt quicker, are actually moving further and further away. So companies really do need to be able to adapt to new technologies, adopt it for productivity to really drive and be part of the future.
Right, so on that, I get a sort of sense there of the sort of dynamism that we're sort of looking for, that fast pace ability to experiment. So if we're on this theme of reimagining work, what role for leadership within that mix? What are the board doing?
Well, some of the key things that we found is if you can create a culture of continual learning, you can embed that within the DNA of your organization. What that also does is embed productivity culture within your organization, always that constant appetite to get better and improve. And so leaders that are able to foster that will set themselves up with almost an anti-fragile business for the future.
Yeah, I'm very drawn to that thought of a culture of continual learning. What does that look like in practice? Any ideas, any thoughts that you've seen that have inspired you?
We're working with a medical training company at the moment that's adopted virtual reality, which means that they can get to a much larger number of hospitals to be able to train in the latest techniques. You can see 3D patients, watch practitioners treat those patients, take the learnings from that. And you can also apply that at universities as well as people come through medical degrees. So that ability to be able to get such reach with digital channels and transform is absolutely key. And what that does, if you get it right, is it does trigger that embedded culture of learning within your organization.
Excellent. And it's more than the companies you're working with. You're walking the walk on this. So what are you doing internally at Accenture on this?
We've got a program across Accenture which is called TQ, which is Technology Quotient, which we run with all our new graduates coming in, and we run with everybody, and we refresh it on a quarterly basis. That we're also deploying with our clients. And that ability to improve the technology quotient within an organization has shown a direct link to productivity. So that ability to create that has been huge for us. We've also now adopted VR. We're one of the largest companies currently using VR, and we've created our own Metaverse for training and learning, where we take our new graduates through, and we also take our experienced hires through as well. And that's really having an impact right now.
Yeah, I think that is automatically inspiring, because hence the name of the series, Tomorrow Today. Very often when we bandy around phrases like the metaverse, it's something that we will start to see in a few years. You're experiencing it today. Any early lessons?
A common misconception actually around the metaverse is that it's all around the consumer. Now, the consumer is a big part, but if you look at the corporate metaverse, it's absolutely huge what we can achieve. Let me give you just one example. We're working with a large confectionery company at the moment. We have created a digital twin of their whole manufacturing process around sweets and chocolate. And what we found is, even taking just a few of those lines, creating a digital twin, running and optimizing within the digital twin before we apply it to the physical manufacturing, means that we can get a £200 million benefit for that client just for a handful of lines, and the opportunity then to roll that out across is huge. So this concept of being able to create digital twins for companies and corporations is huge.
And just to be clear, Matt, the £200 million saving, that's not a hypothetical saving as predicted by some metaverse or digital twin simulation. That has actually, sort of in the real world, if you like.
Real saving identified and deployed into manufacturing sites as of today.
Love it. So help us think a bit more about this link between technology and productivity, because there's clearly a relationship, but I'd love you to help us explore how those two interact.
If you look geographically which countries have the best productivity, there's a clear correlation between the countries that have been able to adapt and adopt new technology as well as innovation. And that's the biggest reason for the improvement in productivity if you look globally. If you then come down to a company level, as I said before, the top 10% of companies are generating twice as much revenue by doing things like moving to the cloud, applying AI. If you just take something like the journey to the cloud, a lot of companies embarked on the journey thinking, oh, there's an opportunity for cost saving. What actually transpires is the real opportunity is around productivity. And if you can do things in the cloud that you just can't do on premise, you can do things like pricing and promotions if you're a retailer in dramatically different ways. You can reinvent the drug production process if you're a pharmaceutical company. And the opportunity to collaborate with lots of different organizations and to reuse components and capability that have already been developed in the cloud. I mean, if you just look at AI, the latest wave, we've been on a 10-year journey for AI. And this wave is now getting really interesting. We're almost on an exponential curve right now. And the capability that you can get access to by being in the cloud can just make a huge difference.
On artificial intelligence, on AI, are there examples that come to your mind that really have cut through?
I'd probably take customer service as a big space. I mean, we've talked about the application of AI to customer service around how you interact as a company with your customers. But now when we see what's possible in terms of being able to answer queries, do upwards of 80% of engagement with customers directly before passing off to a human, is absolutely huge right now. And if you can take AI and automation and apply that to your processes and re-architect the processes, there's real productivity gains to be had right now.
Now, Matt, sometimes we ask people in this series, what's keeping you awake at night? Let me flip that round. The companies that you're speaking to, what's getting them out of bed in the morning?
Well, the CEOs and the C-levels that I talk to, there's just such an opportunity right now. Building that continual learning into the DNA of the organization is just so crucial, because if you can do that, you can build productivity in that opportunity for people to think, how do I improve? How do I get better? How do I get personal growth? And if you can get that personal growth right, that translates to company growth as well.
Yeah.
And that link more and more people are making, which is, if I can empower my employees and give them the opportunity to grow personally, then my organization will grow as a result of that. And that connectivity between personal growth and corporate growth is increasingly becoming more important in high performance businesses.
I think that is an incredibly powerful thought and a fantastic place to end it. Matt Preble, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ollie. Really enjoyed the conversation.